Hey everyone, we are getting to the end of kind of this series and not the journey itself, right? Like I think again, grant writing is a long-term investment and strategy, but for this series where we really kind of show you the process of applying for grants, the ins and outs and the realities of it, whether it's wins or losses, as we kind of go into July where we're going to be wrapping up this series, giving you updates. We recently just talked about some losses, right? And how we deal with those and the reality of those things. I think the next thing I wanted to just ask Justin to share with you and everyone following us, as we think about strategy, we've been kind of regrouping because we don't just take L's and that's it. We learn, right? Those are all opportunities for us to grow, pivot. Justin, can you share a little bit more about, as you worked with clients for so many years, whether it's short-term clients, long-term clients, what are some of the best practices when it comes to regrouping, when it comes to long-tail strategy, and just kind of that process? And what are things that people that are new to grants should be aware of and think through?
Thank you, Andy. It's very easy at the beginning to look at all the strengths of a nonprofit when you are applying for a grant, or even the strengths of your grant that you've written, right? But when you recalibrate, you have to look at the weaknesses. You have to look at what kind of holes are you not looking at or did you not regard in the beginning that may actually be existing, that may actually need to be discussed in the narrative. We want to make sure that the grants are compelling, that it's a great story. But if you notice that some nonprofits have a small board, that could be a flag. If you notice that some nonprofits are not profitable that year, that could be a flag. If you also look like they don't look like they can scale, if this is a new program, they've never done this before, this is out of the range of their expertise, so when you're applying, even though you think they can fit, that could be a red flag. So a lot of times what we need to do is we need to find what those small red flags are that we were not aware of in the beginning. Another thing that you want to think about is how collaborative are you being? If you're just kind of lone wolfing it and going out there and saying, I'm going to send out this grant to TD Bank or some other fine institution, how much have you really learned about the business that you're trying to make a compelling argument for? We all get tunnel vision. It happens to everyone. And we all assume that the knowledge that we have is crystallized and that this is good enough. But you have to have no ego in this business. And when you take an L, you have to understand that there's a lesson to be learned and that it's only going to improve you if you can do a great review. I think the steps to doing that are obviously looking back with the client and having a discussion that's honest and transparent and maybe a little bit humbling. I mean, the client might be upset. You never know. The client may want to end the relationship. I mean, especially if you've gone for 2 months, but you have to explain to them this is a long-term play. Even if you win a grant, you may not get that money for another 5-6 months. I've seen it. Wins or losses cannot be determined. The quality of the work cannot be determined by how fast you get money in. It has to be determined by other metrics.
I think that's great. And one of the things that was a learning experience for me, and you already alluded to this, is just qualifiers and the filters are things that are just not thought through. And there are things that I just didn't think through. So I think if you are a new nonprofit, if you are new to the grant world, like it's kind of like college applications. There are certain things that they don't even read your application if you don't check the boxes on certain things. And every grantor has different requirements. So you mentioned one that I never even thought about, like the size of the board. Like they might just use that as an automatic filter and never even consider your application. The other obvious ones that, well, not so obvious, but they're obvious to me now, and I share this to anyone listening to this, how long you've been around. That's critical. If your project is new, you don't qualify for the vast majority of grants. They want 3 to 5 years in existence, track record. So that automatically, because then I meet so many nonprofit founders or projects that are like, hey, I want to go after all these grants. I just started and they're so energized, but I'm like, hey, you know what? You actually don't even qualify. It's like kind of taking a college entrance. Like if you didn't finish high school, it's going to be really difficult for you to apply for college.
Yeah.
So then you have to kind of go through it, and it's a process. The other couple things that revenue numbers, obviously those are clear indicators. We had a number of people reach out to us regarding the OpenAI grant that was opened up, but it literally says as a qualifier that you have to have $500,000 in revenue and above, and that there's a strong preference for organizations with $1 million and above. So one, they have a baseline filter. 2, they already have a preference. So then even if you think you're like the perfect fit for this grant, like that's your subjective feedback. Literally the grantor organization is telling you these are just the filters. So you have to deal with the reality of those situations, and you have to keep an eye out for it, because I think we get caught up in the emotion of like, oh, I'm the perfect person for this grant or my project is. But there's a lot of people, you know, it's a big world, it's competitive, and again, to your point, it's a long tail strategy. So thanks for sharing that. We'll continue to give you updates as we kind of wrap up this content series. We're going to kind of give you nuggets of what we're doing, how we're making adjustments, but also how we're kind of like figuring out the long-term plan. That said, we've been getting a lot of interest from people that are tracking this. A lot of our clients specifically have been reaching out to us, wanting to kind of start their grant journey and the process. So Justin, I'm happy to share with everyone, we launched our pilot program. We actually brought on one of our NAS clients who had an amazing grant opportunity that we're going to share. We'll create some content out of that. I think it would be great to kind of share kind of that journey, so we get a different POV from just our own grant process, but from another project process. Yeah, so I'm excited to share that. Anything to add before we wrap this call up?
Sure. My last thought is everybody wants to be Robin Hood. It'd be great if you could represent a young, enthusiastic nonprofit that really wants to get out there and do some good. And if it was only about doing good, well, then there wouldn't be enough dollars to frankly go around. We know that when you have a situation where if you're a nonprofit that's revenue is $1 million, grants are not where you're getting the most of your money, and maybe you don't need the grant as much as another smaller nonprofit does. But that's the stipulation for some of these big grantors, and we have to deal with that in the market, especially with the federal government shrinking its capacity to give grants in certain areas. But don't be discouraged. If you want to do good, if you want to help people, whether it's in rural America or urban America, by using grants, remember to express that grants cannot be the only lifeblood of a nonprofit to anyone you're working with. Donations are going to be huge. Donation drives, galas, fundraising events. If you're a grant writer and if you're a nonprofit, work together to see if maybe there's some ways that you can leverage winning grants to galvanize more fundraising. So one of the strategies that anybody has to want to get clients is we want a grant. We're winnable. We've done the thing. So use that to diversify how you raise your funds too. So I think that's a really great thing. But also, grants are a fantastic way to dip yourself into the waters that you're going to need to do. And there are grants out there for first-time nonprofits. Don't be discouraged.
Awesome. Yep. Thanks, Justin. Thanks, everyone.